Alex, my friend, if you could select any song or poem to help inspire a historical figure, alive or deceased, during a downtime in their life, which poem or song would you select and why? Which historical figure would you choose to uplift and why? Please take your time, my friend. Whenever you are ready, the floor is yours, good sir.
And one of my favorite poets was Robert Frost. And one of my favorite poems is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. And I would, I relate this poem to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he was in the Birmingham jail. You know, he was talking about civil rights and getting our government at that time to give everybody an equal opportunity, and that equal opportunity was to give us the right to vote. I'd like to read the poem and maybe break out a little bit of it.
Sure, sure.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. And I look at this poem and relay it to Dr. King's journey. You know, if he had not had, you know, the people and the support during that era to lift him up and help him move the platform forward, then who knows what the world would be like. You know, one of the other things that I have, you know, just another one of his speeches, you know, one of his quotes, and he was talking about civil rights and the laws. You know, he was quoting him. He said, the recent civil rights law would be meaningless unless it was translated into action by Negroes exercising their right to vote. One of the most important things that Dr. King stood for, equal rights and the right to vote. And we have to be aware and cognizant of that road that he took, taking that road, putting himself in harm's way, putting his family in harm's way, but sacrificing all of that for the will and the good of the masses.
Mr. English, my friend, if you had one opportunity to say something to a deceased person that you disagreed with on something specific, what would you say and why to that person regarding the disagreement that you once had?
Well, I'll go back to my junior high school days, and I was in the 8th grade, and I had a coach, white coach by the name of Keith Crow. And that's where I got my basketball start. I was 6'1", long, lanky, kind of awkward, but he felt like I was not a good basketball player and thought that I would never be a good basketball player. So I sat on the bench and I got to play 1 minute that whole year. I used the fuel of him telling me that I would probably never be a good basketball player. I used that as fuel and started working on my basketball game. I got to my high school the next year and I started as a JV player. And at the end of the year, I got moved up to the varsity. And with the varsity, we went to the state championship twice. And I kept getting beat in the state championship by this team from upper state of South Carolina. They had a guy by the name of Clyde Mays. I mean, I could score on everybody else, but I couldn't score on him. He kept blocking my shot, and I would shoot it from here. And my principal at the high school, his name was Dr. Whittingham, and he always smoked a pipe. And he had seen the finals and saw that I had my shot blocked. And he said, son, I know what you need to do with smoking from his pipe. He said, you need to change the arc of your shot. And I thought about that. I said, okay, how do I do that? So I started working on trying to change my shot. And my shot got better. I worked on trying to get fluent with it, get consistent with it, and got a scholarship to go play at the University of South Carolina. Him telling me that I, couldn't be a good basketball player was like putting stacks of logs on the fire, because I was determined that I was going to be a good basketball player. got drafted by Milwaukee, made the team, beating out my old friend. And from then on, I kept getting better and better. But that's the one person that I look back on and I want to thank him, because he was like one of those 3-hour burning logs that you keep putting them on and you just keep burning.
If you can select, Sidney, the most awe-inspiring moment in the 20th century and the most awe-inspiring moment in the 21st century, which moments would you select and why? The floor is yours, good sir.
The awe-inspiring moment for me is actually personal. I didn't really think I would play in the NBA. I never watched the NBA game and said, one day that would be me. That was just so far away from me that I never thought that would happen.
But one thing we always tell young people, and we tell CEOs and people that are doing mentoring, is that you really can't be what you can't see. But Charles Ripley, bless his soul, he took me and a couple more people 2 hours to Memphis, drove to the ball game, stayed at a hotel. We walk across the street to the Piccadilly Circle cafeteria. They had great food. And we walk in and we see these really tall basketball guys. It was the Virginia Squares. Whoa, I'd never seen a pro basketball player before in my life live. And I saw them at that point in time. And we watched them eat. We watched how they communicate with each other. We watched how respectful they were. And that moment shaped how I dealt with people somewhat as a pro basketball player, even a college basketball player, because I wanted to be human. They were, you said it earlier, they were what? Human. They were engaging. They were respectful. They were kind. They were all the things that a person should be if you're at a certain status. And that experience, watching them, first of all, watching them at the restaurant and then watching them play the Memphis Tams, the game that evening, shaped how I felt I needed to interact with people. And that was just so much fun. In addition to, you can't be what you can't see. So I saw it, and at some point I internalized that and I started to become that.
Sidney, if you could title a screenplay about the year 2025 as a whole, what would you title it? Why, good sir? The floor is yours.
But I'm going to go back to the first book I wrote, and it would be titled Reinvent You, because I really believe that we should not ever feel like a failure defines who we are. We should never feel like we can't make an adjustment in our lifestyle, in our career, in our relationships, and that we have to always constantly be innovative and reinventing who we are in some shape, form, or fashion. It came from the fact that I was in the NBA, I had an automobile dealership, and then I coached in the D League. Then I went to China. So I had all these things happening in like a 5-year span. I'm like, wow, that's a lot. And each time I had to reinvent who I was, and it was fun. It was challenging, and it's something that made me a better, more well-rounded person.